There is a connection between the paranormal, UFOs, and the myths of ancient history. The clues are scattered across the landscape from a forbidden past, maybe even in your own backyard. There is a connection between the true nature of our reality, consciousness, and the unexplained. I'm Carl the Crusher. Let's explore the unknown. Welcome back, Crusher Crew. A special shout out to the Patreon followers and inner circle and supporters of the MUPAS team and the Patreon team. Today, we're going to do something really fascinating. We're going to go through part by part this new whistleblower testimony that dropped on the Jesse Michels show, and it is Green Beret Randy Anderson, and he is revealing his shocking 2014 encounter with a levitating extraterrestrial orb at a classified facility out near Area 51. And so we're going to go through parts of this interview, and then we're going to open up new tabs, and we're going to actually break down the background evidence that supports this, including the connections with remote viewing and the secret psychic spy program, and how it is all interconnected, which is amazing because this interview just dropped 23 hours ago, just yesterday. And about 48 hours ago or 3 days ago, we did a whole video about the connections between astronaut Edgar Mitchell and their, let's see, I had that tab open in another spot, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and how he was involved in this entire program going all the way back to the Apollo 14 mission, where he did a remote viewing experiment going all the way to the moon and back, and how it's all interconnected with the UFO crash recovery material. So let's go ahead and start with this interview, and we're going to go through part by part, and then we're going to dig into the background of this. So let's take a look.
Then what happens?
A couple days into the training, we were doing really well. Me and this guy were doing very well. And we got pulled to the side at the end of the day on a regular training day. And we stayed after and we're talking with the cadre and instructors. And somebody else had come into the room, and we thought we maybe were just getting some extra stuff because we were doing well. And they ended up telling us we're going to go check out some foreign weapons. We went to another part of the facility, went to another building. In that building, we went into an elevator. We took an elevator down, which that was the first odd thing, is that it felt like we went down significantly further than like you would think you would. I mean, it was just awkward. It just stood out.
You went way underground.
I don't know if it was way, but it was further down than like a few floors, so I don't know how far. I don't know how fast the elevator was going. I didn't know I needed to pay attention to it at the time. It's just something that stood out to me, that we were going underground.
And these are pretty well documented now across America, underground military facilities. And so, okay, so you're going underground. Did you know that there was an underground complex at Crane before this? Okay.
Absolutely not. Nope, wasn't briefed on it, didn't know about it. Didn't have
so what's going through your mind at this point? You're going down underground in an elevator with these random instructors.
Well, at the end of the day, man, I'm a soldier and I do what I'm told. So I'm just following orders and just going, and okay, we're going to go here, go stand there, do this. But I'm observing, I'm kind of, it's starting to feel different, the mood has definitely become more serious. The people we were with seemed serious, and me and the other guy were just being quiet and, not showing any emotion as we're trained to do. So, we get under there, door opens, we go through, security type checkpoint. I remember the first thing that stood out to me was that it was significantly more modern than everything up top.
Yep.
And that was odd. The lighting and everything seemed more modern, just seemed more upkept.
Yeah, kind of state of the art.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go ahead and stop here, and now we're going to switch over to an interview with a friend of mine, Daz Smith, who is a professional remote viewer. And he actually did a remote viewing 4 years ago. See, I can scroll this up and it says 4 years ago on his YouTube channel, Remote Viewed. where he actually recorded himself doing a remote viewing that ended up being of facilities out and around Area 51. So let's jump over to this. This is him doing the psychic spy technique, remote viewing on the facility. And he is describing the exact same thing of the layout of the facility here. And then it gets even deeper. So we're going to go back and forth between a couple of these interviews and then go down the rabbit hole with these metallic spheres or orbs that are now becoming a part of this UFO UAP story. So let's check this out. And this remote viewing from Daz Smith of Area 51 on his YouTube channel, Remote Viewed.
Artifacts and objects that they get.
Back it up just a little bit.
Still get back engineering. Now this leads to something else. This leads to other groups of men. Now these are separate, but they're connected.
He's literally drawn. He's drawn the surface that looks exactly like Area 51, almost as if this is the surface of the facilities at Groom Lake, and these are the mountains out here, maybe even to the east. Like I think this would be Ball Mountain. This would be like Groom Road over here on the other side of the mountains. And then this would be the Area 51 facility with the landing strips above. But then you've got this shaft going down with all of these living spaces and different descending levels going off like a pine cone or almost like a beehive going down underground like that. So he's describing
here and
the same facilities.
Now these feel like they're groups of men, and they retrieve. They retrieve.
He's even describing the UFO crash recovery teams.
And they bring in artifacts and objects that they get.
He's got analytical overlay, which is like his best guess of what this targeted remote viewing is. And he even wrote up here in the corner, analytical overlay, like his best guess of what he's looking at. He even put Area 51, or that's like the nickname for that entire Nevada test site out there, which is a huge percentage of the state of Nevada. It's a giant facility that covers a lot of acreage, and then it's even extended across Nevada into like Nellis Air Force Base, clear out there all the way up, and then into Utah. You've got Dugway Airfield, which is where they do a lot of biological and chemical testing and flight tests and exotic things, which a lot of times it gets the nickname Area 52. But
still acquire from all over the globe. They bring these objects in. The people on the separate levels, depending on the objects that they bring, whatever it is.
4 years ago.
Look at these objects, find out how they were, take them apart, reconstruct them again. And this feels like a science military research facility where they develop tech, back engineer tech, but it's not just technology. It's technology also based around biology, virology, weaponry, movement, all kinds of subject matters.
Okay, now we're going to jump back again. To the Jesse Michels interview and let him continue. So now this was just released again yesterday, 20 hours ago. And Daz Smith's remote viewing was 4 years ago, talking about the same thing. Like he psychically is describing the same thing, and it gets even more accurate as we go along. Check this out.
It's very streamlined how things operated down there. So you can tell it's like very regimented. Just like you walk on this, everybody walked on the right side to go down the hall. People coming this way walk on their right. Mm-hmm. It's just, and there was like a line on the wall that you follow to different, you know how like the hospitals sometimes have like a line to follow to the emergency room. It was kind of that seem like it was that. I mean, I wasn't 100% paying attention to that. I was just had observed it upon getting under there or getting down there. We moved through a security checkpoint, and then we started looking at some foreign weapons stuff, and they were telling us about some Russian and Chinese weapon systems that were captured. And I don't want to go too into the details and stuff. It's still within too kind of close proximity to that.
Sure.
That I don't want to go too far. But basically, it was pretty advanced stuff that they had been using that was captured, probably I would assume by agency types that were operating in the area and had come across stuff that it seemed exotic. It wasn't anything that would strike me as beyond what I'd expect us to find or people to have the capability of making, but it was interesting for sure. Just the type of ammunition and the way the weapon systems operated. There was
So kind of exotic, unconventional.
Yeah, unconventional.
Yeah,
I would say not so much exotic, but unconventional for sure.
Okay.
And so we talked about that for a little bit, and they kind of I felt like it was sort of evaluating our thoughts on it, maybe seeing, we are weapons experts.
Yep.
And so maybe they just wanted another set of eyes on it, maybe just evaluating to see what we came up with. Maybe they were evaluating us for see what we could find out about. I don't know.
Right.
This is, like I said, I've thought about this a lot. And
maybe they knew and they were testing you.
Exactly.
Maybe they didn't know and they genuinely wanted your help.
Sure.
There's a whole host of possibilities.
Absolutely.
This all sounds really similar to like Bob Lazar's experience, where he can't tell if they're trying to observe him and his reaction to seeing all of this stuff and being exposed to it, like to see if he's fit for a particular type of recovery program, or if he's going to like freak out by what he's experiencing. It's almost like they're dipping him into the deep end of all this stuff to see what his reaction is to it, almost as much as anything else. So it's kind of like a weird initiation thing or something.
And I don't want to say it was one of the, I don't know.
Sure.
But again, we did that for a bit. And then
at any point did you say, hey, why are we down here?
Hell
You're just
no.
kind of yeah.
And you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. It's not the way things are done. So
yeah.
you just do.
Yeah,
you
totally.
just do the thing.
And if you're ever like going to be denied access to the most interesting stuff, it's by asking questions like that, probably.
Yeah,
So
I'd bet.
you probably just want to kind of go with it at that point. Okay, so you're looking at this exotic, or not exotic, but unconventional adversary technology.
Yes. And again, it was really interesting, and I think we came up with a couple ideas of what we thought about it, and purpose and functionality, and then they kind of, the two guys we were with spoke for a little bit, and then and again, I'm a lot of this is me trying to remember, and so I don't know if I'm getting everything perfect, but in hindsight, looking back, I would assume maybe they were deciding if we were going to go further.
Yeah.
And they ultimately decided we would, I guess, because we went down and ended up going through another security checkpoint, which that was odd because we had already gone through a significant level of security. And so I thought that was odd. This was more like going into a skiff.
Okay.
What I would compare it to. And when you do that, everything you take your watch off, anything electronics gone.
Yep. So for the audience, SCIF is secret compartmentalized information facility.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's like a Faraday cage on steroids, so that any comms that take place within the SCIF are completely offline.
Anything that goes into the SCIF
can't come out.
And so it's just a very protected facility for good reason. And so it was that level of security, which is the highest level of security I've seen or dealt with. And so that was strange too, because we had already gone through a pretty robust security checkpoint to get under there.
And are they checking your clearance at each point? Or?
No. I mean, that's already done when we got to the training, so they know who we are.
Yeah.
And it was more just like, do you have anything right now on you? Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Like a TSA on steroids sort of situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But and then you go through that, you put your stuff in a box, it gets locked into a box, and then you go through another checkpoint area, a scan, and whatever else, right? Not uncommon, but seemed highly unusual for this. Mm-hmm. After that, we moved on down another hallway and got into an area that had a marking on the wall and said off-world technology.
Said off-world technology. That's insane.
So immediately my bells go off.
Was it
That's-
engraved, or was it?
No, it was.
Did it look like it was written in marker or something?
No,
or
it was, but it wasn't like it was like permanent. It was like somebody like stuck a placard in, kind of.
Okay.
Like, so I don't know. It could have been a setup. It could have been something just thrown
Sure,
together.
sure.
But it could have been something that's just how they had.
But it said off-world technology.
Yeah, that obviously immediately started to feel what the fuck is going on, right? Yeah. So me and the guy are looking at each other. The other guy that's there, he's another Green Beret. We're like, what the fuck, kind of giving each other that look, and yeah, that was where the weird shit started. So yeah, we go into the room, and the one room, these significantly higher level of technology, like the lighting even looked, everything was just, it was more it was just a different vibe, man. I don't know how else to describe it. Like I said, the lighting was different. The walls had like maybe, I would assume, some type of Faraday material. Like everything was just a higher level of detail.
Yeah.
The first object was a metallic basketball-sized sphere, and it was above a podium, and looked like it was just levitating above the podium.
Levitating above the podium.
Mhm.
So there was space between the sphere and the podium itself.
Correct. And I remember at one point, like, trying to angle myself, like, how is that?
Do you think it could have been some sort of magnetic levitation? Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
But it's just levitating there.
It was just levitating.
Did it
above
look like a prosaic, like this wood table where if you were to, touch it, it would act like a normal object? Did it look holographic? What did it look like?
So, okay, that's a good question. Then what stood out to me was the way the metal looked. It looked unnatural.
Mm.
And I talked with Gerb about this, and he kind of dug in on this. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is it didn't look natural. It didn't look like anything I could compare it to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So look, it almost looked like off-world.
It fit the bill.
Yeah.
And then also there was and this could have been anxiety or anything else, but the energy in the room, man, was just different.
What was the feeling you got looking at this thing?
Just an uneasy, uncomfortable, ominous. That's the best way I can describe it.
Did it feel powerful or conscious, or did it feel like this inanimate object? Or
it didn't feel inanimate. It didn't feel conscious. It just felt like this was significant, and it could have been the way that they brought us in. It could have been all the buildup. It could have been that.
Do you have any extra context at this point? Did the instructors at any point, are they in the room with you, by the way?
They are acting like this is a normal Tuesday. And that's what fucked me up even more. Like that was oddly very strange, man. Like this, I hadn't been exposed to anything like this before that or since. So,
and they didn't say, hey, so what you're about to experience is kind of trippy. They just took you into this room.
They just, and maybe that was part of the point. It could have absolutely just been something that triggered on a evaluation for me and this guy. And they brought us out there to see if we would react to the technology. That could have been a part of it.
Do you ask them at any point?
Well, so after a moment, have a moment to like kind of drink that in, and then they were talking about, and they were kind of talking to us and each other. It felt just weird, man. Almost like they were purposely making it awkward.
Yeah,
I would say, but maybe it's just because I was in a weird situation.
Do you know anything about these instructors as far as like, do they have physics background or military?
Let's pause that for just a moment, and we're going to go back over now to the remote viewing with Daz Smith. And this is where it gets really interesting, where he actually describes exactly the same thing. And this is 4 years ago, where he did a remote viewing of Area 51. And that's pretty much what he saw. And it goes even deeper. So check this out.
Yeah, very complex. For example, one of the retrievals, I can feel one of the retrievals, and it feels or looks like a large football, a large metallic sphere-shaped football. And this is stored or transported in a box type structure. So it looks a bit like we have a box structure, and within it we have a very large metallic shaped football with lines. This feels really dense. Feels grey, silvery, metallic, very dense, very heavy. Feels like there's a glow to it. So we have this object, sphere-shaped object with lines on it, very slightly recessed lines, has a glow to it. There's an energy field. It's contained. Is it a machine? That's a question. I can't answer. It feels like machine-like. Also, I can say it's machine-like, but also there's something else to this. There's an energy to this. There's a field around this, and it feels like it reaches out. It extends out. This feels like it has an AI, an artificial intelligence. Sentient. It's knowledgeable. It's questioning. And I feel that this device, this box, contains it. It's some kind of security type thing. And this feels like it's like retrieved, brought, transported by six men, at least 6 men, military trained. But also there's a scientific level to them. And this feels like it was, I won't say stolen, retrieved or stolen from another country, another location, and brought to this area where it now resides in one of the levels. So that's one of the activities that goes on in a place like this.
Now, he continues in this interview. You should definitely go subscribe to his YouTube channel, Remote Viewed, and he has a YouTube website, remoteviewed.com. But he goes on to describe the facility and how it goes down and how this one particular level, how it houses various UAP craft. And then he draws different variety of them from these hexagonal and octagonal shaped ones, these classic saucer shaped and wedge shaped and football shaped ones, and then some that are crashed. And then he talks about how the ones that are working, like this one here, hovers off the ground like it has extended electrogravitic or electromagnetic or dynamic properties. And it uses like this tube, and it can just go whoop and basically pop up from way deep in the earth in this facility, these underground hangars, and how they fly up. But some of them are basically crashed and all of that. But he goes on to describe all of that. It's actually really, really fascinating. And so I did an interview with Daz. He's a friend of mine and a professional remote viewer that does remote viewing for a living. And I did an interview with him 3 years ago, and he goes into more detail about this encounter. So I had this interview originally on a different podcast YouTube channel. I should repost this interview now, maybe in full. I'll do that. But check this out, where he talks about the remote viewing, and he goes into more detail about the sphere and some of the Area 51 facility. Antennas coming up with chain link fences around them. And it feels like when you look at it, that whole part of the state, a whole region of the country is actually just an underground installation. So maybe describe a little bit what you saw at Area 51.
Yeah, I saw some. I mean, you know, I kind of knew that I was looking at something that was underground, an underground structure. So I drew that, and it had all these levels that were radiating around almost like a central pipe, and each level had a different area of focus or attention that it was working on. And I can't remember what they were on which parts, but the first one was mainly a security living arrangements kind of level. And then there were some science levels. There were some levels when they were looking at metal and metallurgical kind of stuff. There were definite levels where they had moving craft and technology. There's also a level where they had I didn't think I saw. I'll have to go back and relook at it, but I don't think I saw any live walking around alien type beings. But I did see non-human. I don't want to call them alien because we just don't know at this stage. So I'll call them non-human. There were non-human life forms in tanks in various stages of being cut up and being maimed and all that kind of stuff.
Like
but there were
dissection.
some, yeah, but there were some actual proper physical ones as well. But I didn't see any live ones. But then I went to another level and they were actually doing lots of experimentation with the samples and the biology of the non-human life forms, and they were actually doing it in a way that I felt it wasn't beneficial science research. I felt it was more virology and making weapons from the physical parts of the alien bodies.
Really? Like they're developing exotic alien form genetic weapon forms and things.
Something like that, yes.
I know that's a lot of, there's Area 51 in Nevada, and if you go northeast of that into the borders into Utah, which is the state that I live in, near the Salt Flats, there's what they're calling Area 52 now, which is like Dugway Airfield. And there's a lot of exotic chemical and biological weapons they do out in the middle of the desert there. It really makes you wonder. You saw almost like, I remember Area 51 being just like, airport hangars and things and like runways or driveways on the surface, and then as your consciousness probed deeper and followed it, it's almost like a big pine cone underground, like a spire going down with radial rooms coming off of it.
Spokes off of a wheel. It felt like it was radiating out at different levels as you went down. It spiraled downwards, and they did have a level that did proper physical weaponry as well. I didn't really understand. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and review it, but they were doing that. And I also
so I'm going to pause there because remember the Green Beret, what was his name? The Green Beret Randy Anderson. He described the same thing, that before he was taken in and saw the sphere, that before that he was in a level where he was shown different weapon that looked like captured foreign technology. And Daz is describing all of this over 3 years ago in a remote viewing of the same facility. I find that like fascinating that he was able to nail this so accurately. So let's keep going.
One point, and this is what really amazed me, because I literally only just managed to find feedback on something like this, is in one of the areas there, I saw that there was a football-shaped sphere, around about this kind of size, and it was metallic looking. And as I was probing it, kind of intuitively, I felt like there inside it actually was a conscious, living AI type machine that was there. And it felt like almost like it was in a packing crate somewhere or something, or in some kind of containment, so they kind of knew what they had, but they didn't really know what they had. They didn't realize the power that this thing they had. And I thought that was mind-blowing, and I didn't really understand what I was seeing. And literally just this week I turned on the TV one day and I saw a paranormal documentary, and it was about some people, I think it was in Brazil. They were on their farmland one day and they found a metallic sphere, and they called it the Bet sphere, perfect shaped sphere, and they just found it in the forest one day, and they took it home with them, and it used to follow them around the house and stuff. And
I've seen that. Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And they x-rayed it and stuff, and they felt that it had this consciousness inside. And I was like, but they then got it examined by the military or the government or something, and no one knows where it went from that point onwards. And I was like, whoa, this ties in with what I saw. This is so freaky.
Okay, so now we got to jump from there, and we have to take a look at what we just were talking about there. If you're unfamiliar with the Bet's sphere, we have to watch a video from the History Channel, Ancient Aliens Mystery of the Bet Sphere. This is from season 12, Isn't it funny how these Ancient Aliens episodes about the metamaterial and about all this weird stuff that we all thought was phony is now being reported by Green Berets and whistleblowers and people that are coming out of these facilities, and they're being validated as potentially and allegedly being real. So let's check this out.
A very strange thing happened in May of 1974 when a Florida man named Terry Betts found on his island property this curious metal sphere, now known as the Betts sphere. They took it home. They didn't know what it was.
They thought it looked like a downed NASA satellite or maybe a Soviet satellite. So Terry just puts it in a windowsill for a couple of weeks. Then one day he has a friend over, and as he's playing the guitar, the sphere suddenly starts to come alive. It starts making humming sounds, and it seems to be responding to particular notes played by the guitar.
Then another thing he noticed is that if you put the sphere on the ground, it'll roll away from you and then roll back to the person who rolled the sphere initially. If you put it on the tabletop, it'll roll around the tabletop, but never off the edge of the tabletop. Then strange things started happening. Doors in their houses started slamming on their own, and they began hearing organ music in the house at night. And this started to really concern them.
They had the military and NASA come and look at this sphere to see if it was some kind of military device or some piece of a spaceship or something like that. Both of them said, no, we don't know what this is.
Well, the Betts family decided to consent to further testing at the nearby naval station. And after X-raying the sphere, they found out that it wasn't hollow, that there in fact were two spheres within that sphere.
It had magnetic poles, and these poles would shift and move around on their own accord. It would defy logic. How are these spheres moving? And they also noted that it was sending out radio waves.
In the end, no one could ever explain it. So it was kept with the Betts family. And today we don't know where this sphere is, in fact. But you have to ask yourself, what was this strange metallic sphere? What was it made of? How could it do all of the strange things that it was doing?
Where is the Betts sphere today? And what information is it gathering and communicating back to whoever made this strange thing in the first place? That's what I want to know.
We also saw Linda Moulton Howell in our recent video that we did with the connections between Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Hal Puthoff, and Russell Targ and Uri Geller at the Stanford Research Institute remote viewing and psychic spy program, which is all going to be coming up and involved in this as well. So we have the Betts sphere, we have remote viewing with professional remote viewer Daz Smith being validated from over 4 years ago, and the rabbit hole gets deeper.
Probably learned a great deal about a sphere that has self-activating software, and maybe has been sending and receiving to other intelligences the whole time.
Okay, so now we need to jump back to the Jesse Michels interview, and we're going to check this out where he continues to talk about his experience down with this sphere and with these other Green Berets and Special Forces guys that are down there showing him these exotic objects. And again, we have Linda Moulton Howell and these same figures that are coming up again and again, connected back to the remote viewing program at Stanford and the UFO crash recovery program actually being a real thing, connected to potentially the Roswell crash at Edgar Mitchell, and also now potentially the Betts sphere or something similar to that being kept down in facilities under Area 51. And some of this material also being sort of snuck out of these compartmentalized programs and have ended up at To the Stars Academy with Tom DeLonge and Dr. Hal Puthoff. And all of that stuff we talked about in one of our recent videos, if you want to go back and check that out.
Military background?
Most of them have military background. A lot of them come out of the same type of special operations that we were in, at least some of them. But they are civilian contracted companies that are working for, for Crane.
Gerb has come up with some really interesting research around how this is possibly SAIC and how they've done some contracting work with Crane in the past. And SAIC is pretty deep in consciousness research. In fact, they were the CIA has a psychic spy program. This is fully, by the way, declassified and known and on record. Psychic spy program, it ran from 1972 to 1995. Probably some version of it is still going on today. I have trouble believing that, they actually sunsetted it fully. And
why wouldn't they? It was successful.
Yeah. And you have, people like Joseph McMoneagle, who's remote viewer #1, who won the Legion of Merit for over 200 instances in which he added to military intelligence. In fact, you have a quote from Jimmy Carter, who's president from 76 to 80, saying the craziest thing that I've ever experienced in my presidency was a remote viewer. Her name, I believe, was Rosemary Smith. Yeah. Basically, there was this Tu-22 spy plane, Russian spy plane, that had downed. It had gone down in Africa. All of Africa is the target, and this woman draws a 3 square mile radius in Zaire where they find the plane. And he freaks out. And there's an audio of him saying this. And so, for anybody out there, you should look into this. This is a real program. SAIC in Palo Alto was running a lot of the operations later for Stargate and the psychic spy program. So they're extremely interested in this. And our friend UAP Gerb has dug up a lot of research around SAIC's work with Crane. And there are other instances, by the way, of tests going on with people and their psionic connection.
Before we get into this next spot of the rabbit hole, as we're going deeper down this is where we got to jump over and check out the recent evidence that we uncovered in a recent video, where I found this picture of either Stanford Research Institute or the secret meeting at NASA, which is, there's Uri Geller and there's Hal Puthoff in the white shirt with the tie, and then the suit coat, that's Wernher von Braun from NASA, the founder of NASA. And then there in the green or gray jacket, depending on, I had to colorize this image because it was really orange and yellow when I initially got it. But that's Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut from Apollo 14, who did the remote viewing exercises back to these guys and proved that he could do remote viewing or telepathy from the moon, which started this whole program. And the story is that Uri Geller has told and Hal Puthoff that they were taken down into a secret facility affiliated with NASA, and that Wernher von Braun showed them metamaterials that came from a UFO crash recovery, and that changed all of their lives and their careers and everything into this special access programs. And could this actually be a real picture of Edgar Mitchell, Wernher von Braun, Hal Puthoff, and Uri Geller looking at a piece, or pretending to reenact and look at a piece of that metamaterial? They're all looking down, pretty mind blown at whatever Wernher von Braun is holding in his hands right there. And Hal Puthoff is the founder of the psychic spy program that they're talking about in that other interview. Also, Edgar Mitchell was born and raised in Roswell, New Mexico, and is very outspoken about the Roswell crash being real. And he was also close friends and best friends with Art Bell from Coast to Coast AM, the radio show out of Vegas that was smuggled a lot of crash material allegedly from Roswell that ended up in the hands of Hal Puthoff, who now works at To the Stars Academy with Tom DeLonge. So it's all fascinating how these connections all fit together. Now we're going to go back to this interview on the Jesse Michels show and continue down this rabbit hole.
And there's a guy named Chris Bledsoe you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
North Carolina.
Yes.
A guy named
Crazy story.
Yeah. And a guy named Tim Taylor is a NASA mission controller. We were talking about him last night. Shows up in Bledsoe's life.
Yep.
Shows him a piece of space material, and somehow Bledsoe knows that it's like not from here.
Yeah.
And then and there's this interesting kind of reaction, and then Tim Taylor says, "Why you?" or something. Like he knows that at that point Bledsoe does actually have this genuine psychic ability or something.
Well, dude, that's funny that you bring that up, because I 100% when I saw that sphere could say that I would, if I had no other context, even though I had the off-world technologies label, if I had none of that, I would have been like, that's not from here.
Right. More context or corroboration that maybe your story isn't happening in a vacuum. There's a story of Uri Geller where, again, say what you will about the guy. I think there might have been some snake oil in some of the stuff that he was doing, but he was brought over by a guy named Andrei Puharich, who was part of consciousness research going on in the US, but also was doing weird MK Ultra stuff as well.
Right.
He brings over Uri Geller. Uri Geller has a crazy story with Werner von Braun, who's the father of the German and American space programs, ran our Saturn program that took us to the moon, where von Braun shows him, a piece of space material in a safe. And Uri Geller is able to deduce that this is not from here or whatever. And so this seems to be kind of this recurring trope.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Exactly like we were talking about, the connections between the psychic spy program from Stanford Research Institute with Uri Geller, Hal Puthoff, Werner von Braun, and astronaut from Apollo 14, Edgar Mitchell. And there they all are in this photograph. And we've talked about this. We even went into the connections of Andrei Puharich and MK Ultra and how he came out of the Montauk Project. Now, all these spooky myths and conspiracies revolving around the UFO stuff are starting to be confirmed by these whistleblowers. You've got this Green Beret saying that he saw all of this stuff for himself. And we also know that Hal Puthoff now has some of this metamaterial that was smuggled out from allegedly from the Roswell crash. Now they're talking about all of this and it all fits together. Also, we have the connections brought up between Chris Bledsoe, who is also a good friend of mine. Now, Chris Bledsoe, I'm not going to play any of this interview, but I have the entire thing listed on my YouTube channel. NASA's most studied alien encounter shares mind-blowing spiritual abductions. Chris Bledsoe. Chris and I talk all the time and we text back and forth. He has a book that is out called UFO of God that you should definitely go read. And we've got this full hour-long interview and podcast talking about these stories. Chris Bledsoe also has, like that story been told where they've done the psychic experiments. So what happened was myself and Chris Bartle from Skinwalker Ranch, who also used to work on the Janet detail out and around the Nevada test site in Area 51, was a good friend of mine. And he came with me and Chris Lado and Brent Stone of Museum of Tarot. And we all went to a ranch in Nevada and we did a telepathy experiment where we put sensors on my head and tried to do telepathic experiences in a spot where there was supposed to be a UFO buried underground. And we recorded my brainwave data. And when the History Channel, which had CIA agents and stuff involved in the show, were embedded in the show, they came to the ranch and we did similar experiments there at that ranch in Nevada. But they also went and filmed an episode with Chris Bledsoe and his family where they recreated that experiment that we did on my YouTube channel there in Nevada. And they hooked up EEGs on Chris Bledsoe's head and recorded him having interactive telepathic communication with these glowing orbs or spheres like UAP that are flying over his house and sort of communicating to him telepathically and through visions and dreams and things like that. Chris Bledsoe also talks about in his book, and it's been admitted before, that he has had UAP appear in a backyard and around the property. And they have also recovered UFO material that Lou Elizondo has come and collected through their affiliations with John Alexander and otherwise. So let's now go back to this original interview here with Jesse Michels and Green Beret Randy Anderson. And let's continue on because it continues to connect. Now we've got the Psychic Spy program, the UFO Crash Recovery program, the Betz Sphere, and even modern day professional remote viewer Daz Smith all seeing and connecting the same things and validating the testimony of this UFO whistleblower who said that they saw this UFO tech under Area 51. So it's all starting to add up really interestingly.
Well, I mean, I definitely felt that when I saw the object. I did not say that, and I think they were trying to see if we had a reaction to it. And I mean, because there was an awkward moment of silence, like I said, and then they started talking about it, and maybe they were discussing it to get further reaction out of us. But they started talking about that it was recovered from a craft that had crashed.
They said that.
They did say that.
Wow.
Mhm.
So they said this orb was actually recovered from a craft,
yeah.
but it itself was not the craft.
Correct.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So what do we think? I mean, did you extrapolate anything from that as far as what role the orb played in the craft's overall working?
So I want to be careful how what I say I remember and don't remember, because this was a while ago, but I want to say I remember them talking about it being a control mechanism for the craft, some type of control mechanism for the craft. And I don't remember if they had said that to each other or to us. Like I said, there was kind of a two-way conversation happening. They were talking a little bit back and forth to each other, and then giving us bits of information also. So I don't remember exactly how that came out, but I do remember them saying that it was potentially part of a control mechanism and that it interacted with consciousness. I wanted to ask a question. I didn't, but I'm like, how would they know that?
Right. Wow. So, okay. You see this orb levitating on this podium. Then what happens?
So we spent a little time there, and then we went to the next object, and it was another metallic object, very, very strange looking, same type of vibe. It's hard to describe because it didn't get a full view of it, but it looked like something you could like reach in and grab and pick up. And maybe it was something that would, you could put on your arm, or something that would have to use it with their arm. That's the best way I can describe it.
Like a gauntlet.
It's like a gauntlet. Yeah. That's a good analogy. Or maybe something that would like be like a shield, but and it had like a crystal type of display screen. Or I don't know if it was a display screen. It was a square, rectangular, looked like it would potentially be a display screen. And it was not levitating. It was sitting on a table. And at that point, like I'm looking at it, and it almost looked like a mirage type of effect. And in that, above that display screen, were these hieroglyphic symbols that I started to see appear.
What?
Yeah.
Hieroglyphic symbols.
That's the best way I could describe them.
And
I don't know what they were.
Anything going through your mind at this point as you're seeing?
Yeah, it was shit and bricks. I mean, yeah, it was terrifying. I mean,
and are you trying to figure out?
I'm just trying to be cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not look like I'm trying to act normal.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this is for. I'm just trying to just act like everything's fine.
Yeah. And in retrospect, have you been able to deduce what any of these symbols were, or draw them up, or what they mean? Or
so I've randomly, like I told you, I meditate and all this stuff now, and during meditations I've had a couple times where I've thought about it and they've come into my thoughts. Also, the lawyer,
Danny Sheehan.
Yeah, he had talked about them, and he had drawn some that looked a lot like what I saw.
A lot like what you saw.
Yeah.
So for context for the audience, Danny Sheehan in 1974 or 5 was taken into a skiff, again, secret compartmentalized information facility in Washington, D.C., I believe at the behest of the incoming Carter administration. So it might have even been 76. And he was shown basically the Blue Book files.
Right.
And he's looking through the Blue Book files, and he sees this UFO crashed into the side of a mountain.
Okay.
And it's the dead of winter, and there's some Air Force officers present. And he sees on the rim of the UFO these hieroglyphic symbols.
The UFO had crashed into this field, and there was snow, and the dirt was all turned up and stuff. And the UFO itself was stuck in the side of this big embankment. In one of the photos, I could see these symbols that were all around the base of the dome. And I took out the yellow pad and I opened it up to the inside cardboard of it, and I slid it under the microfiche machine, and I focused it so that I could see the symbols. And then I traced the symbols exactly, verbatim, all the way around the half of the dome that I could see. And I just I just traced all of them.
I saw that show, and what he had drawn is very close to what I seen. And also, I want to touch on something else that this correlates with. Documentary that I saw on YouTube.
Before we go any farther, I have a special surprise for you where I actually found what I believe is footage of this crash that was talked about by Danny. And so when he saw this, what looked like a UFO crashed in the hillside and the snow, this is what I found footage. This is just called a Russian UFO crash. But everything that you're going to see in this video, when you go and watch the full report from Danny Sheehan, he describes basically seeing the microfilm and the footage and then images and reports of this case. And this seems to be authentic. So I'm going to go ahead and mute this. Now, this was in Russia. He describes seeing it in the snow, seeing people going out wearing the fur caps, going out to this UFO crash. This is the actual footage, I believe, that Danny saw. There you have it. You have the UFO, what looks like a disc, crashed in the hillside, in the trees, with the dirt all thrown up in the snow, and these Russian soldiers standing around, armed guards dressed in trench coats, guarding this crashed saucer. And allegedly, in this footage, we're not going to see any symbols clear enough, but allegedly Danny claims that there were up close photographs of the dome of this craft that had the hieroglyphs on it. But there does appear to be symbols sort of around the hull. And note that while the snow is kind of this weird greenish blue color, so is that. So it could be that this is metallic and just reflecting the color of the sky and the snow and everything, kind of giving it this blue sheen, but maybe it is a little bit of kind of a turquoise color. So let's check this out. You have them all standing around, different armed guards in the brown trench coats, other ones in gray, and then there looks to be people in charge that are just in leather suits. Maybe they're scientific officials or more political figures, clearly medical personnel. And here's where it gets interesting too, is that you even get the camera guys filming each other. So if this is a film set, if this is meant to be like a staged event, it doesn't make sense that you would have all of this authentic military gear and fatigues and people with guns, but also the camera guys catch each other on camera, which typically does not happen if it's like a staged event. Typically you don't film the camera guys and break the fourth wall, but here you see the camera guys will film each other on accident. But this is the full video that I believe Danny Sheehan saw the files of, that he were revealed to him, that he even testified about. Let me know in the comments if you've seen any of this footage before. It looks pretty legit. I mean, they bring these soldiers out, line them up, and then their job is to kind of go around the site and gather up the stuff that's spread out and crashed around and kind of bring it to one spot so they can start to collect it. He's literally telling him to film it. Let's see, can we get a shot? There we've got some symbols. This looks like a V or a triangle here with arrows almost going off here. It's hard to tell because we've got the shadows of the trees. So this could be tree limbs, just tree limbs, shadows going up. It's hard to tell with symbols, right? But some of this definitely looks like a triangle, like here. This looks like symbols. It almost looks like some kind of Mayan glyphs or petroglyphs or something. Like, fascinating. Okay. There's a little clearer shot. Is it possible? So did Danny see what the symbols that were around the hole here that are just too blurry in this video? They're like cutting down the trees, like they're getting ready to extract the thing. Picking up different parts of the craft and gathering it together. Notice they're just like grabbing it with their gloves, with their almost with their bare hands. They don't seem to be testing for radiation or any anomalous energy or anything dangerous. Like now there's a whole bunch of concerns about getting close to this type of stuff. It could be dangerous and could cause a what they call interference syndrome. But I believe that this is the actual footage. There you've got shots of the camera guy panning back and forth, and they film each other. And the camera edits and switches back and forth between the debris and the crew. Notice how you can tell basically who's in charge and who's following the orders, who's basically the scientists and who's guarding. There's the other camera guy. So we saw his footage a minute ago, right? And now here's the other camera filming him, right? So we're getting even behind the scenes of this whole thing. Isn't that fascinating? So let's go back then to this original interview, because I believe now you see what they were just talking about with Danny Sheehan and those symbols and what all of that could be about. And let's keep going for
YouTube about DMT.
Yeah.
And these guys were doing experiments with DMT, and they found that everybody was seeing these same symbols when they shine a laser a certain way and kind of diffracted the laser.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's jumping ahead just a little bit. Before we get into that, I wanted to go back and show you guys and go back again to the Roswell incident. Now, this is from the Roswell Reports, Volume 6, and this is an interview with Jesse Marcel Jr., and he is the son of Jesse Marcel, who was the military official that was there and recovered a ton of UFO crash debris from the Roswell incident. And this is him talking about what he saw when he was a kid, and his dad brought a whole bunch of that. He had a whole carload of it and a bunch of it. And he was also, Jesse Marcel Jr., good friends with Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut that wound up at the remote viewing program with Hal Puthoff, who is all involved with the UFO crash recovery program and the remote viewing program. So here we go.
How old were you at the time?
11.
And when he spread all this material out on the floor, what was your impression about what this material was like? How would you describe it?
Well, initially, just looking at it, well, what's this all about? You know, I'm sleepy. But then when you get down and looking at it, it was the unusual character of the debris. And I want to say that he said something like this is from a flying saucer, but I'm not sure that he said that. But the meaning was clear that this is something very special, and he wanted us to look at it.
And what's your recollection about what the material looked like, felt like?
Well, I could divide it into three major categories. I'm thinking back on it quite a few times. There was a lot of rather thick foil-like material, kind of not a shiny aluminum, but burnished or a slate gray type of aluminum metal. There was a black plastic type debris like bakelite, which was shattered. It was very brittle material. And then there were fragments of what appeared to be I-beams, relatively small, but
now, some of the different fragments and material we have seen wind up to the Stars Academy, and it came through from Roswell to Art Bell in Las Vegas, Nevada, and then it ended up being tested by Travis Taylor before he went to Skinwalker Ranch, and also Hal Puthoff, who was friends with Edgar Mitchell at the remote viewing Stanford Research Institute. So let's skip ahead just a little bit to where he talks about the I-beams. Let's see if we can find it, because the I-beams had also hieroglyphs.
You say that it was unusually light, lighter than you would expect.
light as a feather.
Light as a feather. Interesting. the would you describe as almost plastic or bakelite like material?
The bakelite
Tell me a little
material
more
is
about
like
the
plastic.
worthy of comment about this material that you recall.
Again, it's a dull gray, like a flat balloon finish. I guess that'd be a good way to describe that.
Metallic.
Metallic, definitely metallic.
Anything else unusual about this particular piece of material?
Well, the most unusual part of this whole thing was what was on the I-beam, on the inner surface of the I-beam. Because as you look at it head on, there appeared to be a type of writing on the mainframe itself. This writing was definitely a purplish violet hue. It did have an embossed appearance because you could, if I recall, you could rub your finger along it and you could tell it had texture. I don't recall seeing any lines or letters of any kind, but it was more like geometric shapes. Or, well, it's hard to describe it. It was curved geometric shapes. There might have been some triangles and circles, but it was solid.
Is it possible you might have mistaken it for Russian, Japanese, any other language?
No, no way.
Anything like hieroglyphics?
Well, in my first impression was this is Egyptian hieroglyphics, but I knew enough at that time to know that it wasn't, because hieroglyphics usually have some animal symbols in it also, but there was none.
Okay, so there you have it from Jesse Marcel Jr. talking about the weird symbols that they had on the I-beam from the crash at Roswell that he saw his dad bring in from the UFO crash. So this is what's fascinating. I also found this video. Now, I don't know if any of this is real, guys. This is all just alleged. This is also from some kind of a secret document, a UFO found in northern Saskatchewan. So check this out. This is from northern Saskatchewan, da 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 da. But then look at what the material looks like here in this leaked crash footage. And it's also called Leaked Footage Shows Roswell UFO Crash Salvage Debris. And this is the recovery of that material. So check this out. And it is an I-beam with what appears to be hieroglyphs or some kind of strange language or symbol. I know that it's really difficult to tell, but here's where it's fascinating is that this particular symbol right here, I have seen many, many, many times this symbol here and this symbol here. It looks like Saturn, and this looks like the letter E, like inverted both ways, like a T with the lines all the way through it. This is something that I have seen many times. Let me just show you really quick. I've actually got it open here. We'll go full screen on this. But this is a location called that I've nicknamed the Magic Mesa. This is in southern Utah. And this is basically straight over that mountain right there that you see in the background over here. If you drove on the road and went straight west, that is where Area 51 is. So check this out. Here, an entire wedge of light comes down from the sky right onto your head and onto your chest to make a triangle of light like a tunic that comes directly from the sun, from the solstice through that crack in the rocks right there. And you're sitting that entire time. So right here among all of these strange symbols about the creation of the universe and these anthropomorphic figures. From this point of view, I'll put you what it would look like. So here's the seat. So your head level's about right here. And then basically this is what you're looking at while you watch the sunrise come up right through that crack in the rocks. And then the way that the shadow and the light goes across this entire panel tells the entire story here of how this shaman figure, the triangle will appear on him first. And then you see the horns of like power. He's got ears that look like he's half man and half creature or animal, or he's got some kind of headdress or earrings on. 4 fingers on one hand and then 5 on the other. So he's missing a finger. Notice how he doesn't have any feet or toes, but these guys do, right? So these guys actually have toes, and this guy doesn't have any feet, which means he is half in this world and half in a spirit world. So he's not standing in our dimension. He's a spiritual entity, or the shaman. And then you can see his consciousness or thoughts go out and connect to like the story of the village and the creation of man and the universe of the village. And these also can be different depictions. So you see these triangles down here. I've been told this is a symbol symbolizing the village, and this is like the firmament, and this is like the star people coming to the village. And it's complicated, but it has to do with this glyph up here. Rather than getting into all of the whole story in this video, definitely go watch the other ones. But this is about how the villager goes through this spiritual doorway, transcends up and changes and becomes this like ascended master that then has this wisdom and knowledge of the creation of the universe and our solar system, which is what's told all up here. The different sections and organizations of the creation of the universe and of our earth. And they go from being organized at the first man and woman, the beginning of man, the first children to come to earth, and then how it goes, those kingdoms go from organized to disorganized, and how we are trapped in the lower kingdom, the lower dimension, and we have to find the way out, which is this whole story. Remind me your names again.
Connor.
Cliff.
Cliff Connor.
Nice to meet you. Cliff and Elaine Connor. Look at this. There is a whole figure there. Look at that. So you got 3 toes, arms. Look at this symbol.
It's like a
Notice it. Look at this symbol right here. Now, they say this is like a baby or something, or this is a depiction of a child with the big head. But you tell me, all of these are anthropomorphic, strange deity figures, or the star people. And they're next to these weird spheres or football-shaped spheres and things. And then here you have this glyph in this ancient petroglyph valley that looks exactly the same as what we see on the artifacts here.
Look at the big head on that. Looks like a baby.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I saw it.
And there's a dot next to it. Wow, I'm gonna come up around there. See this? It almost looks like an Asian glyph or something. Ancient Indus Valley glyph or something. It's very old. That's very old. Almost can't even see it.
So you tell me then how it's possible that in this leaked footage we have the same symbols showing up. Allegedly from the Roswell crash. Notice the symbols and the glyphs and the fact that it is on an I-beam that fits the description of Jesse Marcel Jr. that he says that he saw his dad bring in from the Roswell crash. And it gets even stranger. So it's not only just the I-beam, but there's also other stuff that was with the crash. Now, again, I don't know if this is real or if this is part of a hoax or if this footage is fake. But when you start to connect the dots, when you hear the stories of them seeing the different symbols and the glyphs and the hieroglyphs, you hear Jesse Marcel Jr. tell the story about what he saw and describe it. You hear Danny Sheehan, you hear the Green Beret talking about the different glyphs that he saw and the symbols holographically appearing off of what looked like a gauntlet. And all of a sudden, you start to see this pattern emerging, these strange glyphs and symbols. And also from the Rendlesham Forest incident, clear over in the UK, the UFO that came down and landed there, those military officers that went out and encountered that also said that there was glyphs on that craft. So I don't know how we see these same types of symbols and ancient petroglyphs that are supposed to be drawn by the Anasazi and the Pueblo, the Hopi, and different petroglyph and pictograph carvers from several thousand years ago. But how long has this kind of stuff been going on? Has there actually been interaction between extraterrestrial life and communication and even carvings of petroglyphs that match? And then what do these symbols mean? This video goes on to allege that these symbols can be interpolated into ancient Greece from different time periods of ancient Greece and actually translates. But then also there's these hand plates. Are these real or is this fake? I don't know. But notice that the hand plates have 6 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 6 fingers, and then you've got these concentric arcs going out. Like you put your hands on the hand plates, and then and somehow through consciousness or telepathy, you put your hand on the craft itself like that. Notice the hands are small, and then there's 6 fingers on each hand. It's very strange. Could it be also that some of this is similar to the arts parts, the stuff that ended up at Art Bell, smuggled through Edgar Mitchell to Art Bell and then Linda Moulton Howe, and then they came to Hal Puthoff? But could some of these little pieces and these fragments be some of what is now the same material that is at To the Stars Academy with Tom DeLonge? You have all this crashed debris along with these hand plates. It's just very interesting when you fathom all of it. And so now when we go back to the original UFO whistleblower, he talks about, again, this whole DMT experience with the lasers. That's going to be interesting as well. So check this out.
Very close to what I seen. And also I want to touch on something else that this correlates with. Documentary that I saw on YouTube about DMT.
Yeah.
And these guys were doing experiments with DMT, and they found that everybody was seeing these same symbols when they shined a laser a certain way and kind of diffracted the laser.
Yep.
In a way that you do like the double slit experiment.
Yes.
And in the diffraction, they saw these symbols, and those symbols are the same.
That's fascinating. Yeah, Danny Jones does this amazing show on this, and these guys they're doing DMT. They're showing a laser in a specific way exactly to create this diffraction effect, and then their kind of interpretation of this is like they're seeing almost like the source code, like a binary code behind what we're seeing, which that sounds absolutely absurd. But if you take physicists like John Wheeler seriously, or people like Claude Shannon, who wasn't really more kind of information theory, but like maybe the universe is more information theoretic at its core, and we are rendering it in real time. And maybe when you take DMT, you ascend into these higher states, and you can actually look at the source code itself. It's fascinating.
And what does it mean then if that source code is in the same language of whatever
what you saw?
I saw on that device and whatever Danny saw on that craft?
That makes me think that these things off-world might be a slight misnomer, and it might be an interior fabric to the reality that we're in every day, or something even more fundamental to what we're seeing, or something.
Probably.
So this also ties in with an experiment that we also did, where when I was with Chris Lado and the same team, where we did on the same trip where we did the psychic experiment with the EEG in the cave, where we put the sensors on my head and did the remote viewing and the telepathic encounter, where there's a buried UFO in Nevada. And we measured that results that went back through the History Channel and that whole program to Chris Bledsoe that's being studied by NASA and the CIA. We also did several years ago. How long ago was this? This was over 2 years ago, where Chris Lado, Chris Bartel, and Brent Stone, we were all up at the saloon here, and we did this double slit experiment, and we went up and filmed, and we talked about how it felt like it revealed the difference between the different waveforms, and where it can't choose, where it's differentiated and when it's not. And when you go up really close, there was several moments where we were peering into the laser, into the fog machine and everything. And we were talking about how it's like you could see a code. And when I posted videos about this experiment that we did up at the saloon on TikTok, it went totally viral on my TikTok account and got like several 100,000 or over 1 million views. And I almost wonder if that experiment inspired that whole discovery, where those guys are sitting around doing DMT and turned on the laser and then did an entire documentary about this. But we did this over 2 years ago. Check this out. And then we're gonna take that over here and split the laser with the fog machine on the grid over here and see if we get any kind of dimensional anomalies with a laser here in the saloon. That's my friend Chris Lado. You got to go subscribe to his channel as well. He's too tall. We need to put the laser up on like a coaster.
Yeah.
Mount Wilson Ranch, Pioche, Nevada coaster. Here we go. That's so funny.
Yeah, that'll work.
Perfect.
Okay, so trying to line the laser up on the, where is it? There we go. Okay, so it's cutting the hair.
It's
you see?
touching the hair, yes.
Right there. So now we should see an interference pattern on the wall. So we'll go look at the wall. Interference pattern means you'll have
like it can't decide.
A plus and a minus and a plus and a minus. So we should see gaps because it's interfering. The wave is interfering with itself.
What is the laser dying now?
Oh.
It just beeped like it's going to turn off.
Is that an interference pattern?
Look at the edges of it. I can't tell if that's the wood grain.
Yeah, let's clean it up
or not. It's not the wood grain because it's doing the same thing on my hand.
I think we want to. Yeah.
Yo, what's up? We're doing the double slit experiment. Yeah, man. Of course.
Anyone know any buttons? How to do anything?
I have no idea. There's a button on the side.
I just want to turn off the that mapping thing. I just want to have a straight laser, you know.
Oh yeah, not a grid.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the wood grain because it looks exactly the same. You
You'll
have
see it change. Watch as I
totally. Oh yeah, there now it's like it's decided and now it's undecided.
Yeah. So that's no interference pattern. It's just going straight through, right? And now I put the hair in the way.
Put the hair in the way and it completely fractals out.
It's splitting it. So what happens is then it acts like a wave. So anytime light comes up against the surface, like you can do it with half a piece of paper as well. If you block half of the light stream, then it would bend around it just like water bends around in a pool.
Whoa, you got the green laser going now.
Watch the pattern. Boom.
Okay, so you're
Fucking
going
spreads way out on the wall.
You're going right on the hair. Okay, we're gonna follow it up here.
Well, look at that pattern.
Whoa, you can see it. Look at that.
All the way
It
across.
totally splits.
Now, Jeff, can you get the smoke? So it'll spread out like that, a total wave across everything. You see that?
So
explain what this means to our understanding of.
Okay, so you can go check out that video if you want, but that's an awesome one that we did over 2 years ago, along with the telepathic experiment, and that has now led to this whole new discovery that they're also talking about that ties into this strange interdimensional language or hieroglyphs or code that seems to appear on this UFO crash recovery material. And the same code, is it the same things? Check this out too.
I was like, that's just mind-boggling. It's a monster, right?
But at the same time, it fascinated me. And I said to myself, how do we know that? This unthinkably massive thing. I realized that nature doesn't keep secrets. It's only a matter of, do we understand? What tools can we use to expand our knowledge? And for me, dimethyltryptamine, also known as DMT, was the tool that led me to the discovery.
When I first saw the phenomenon, I was like, holy shit.
But then it was actually like, whoa, what is happening?
Am I losing my mind? But then I showed other people, and things kept getting weirder.
Just for the record, I haven't told him anything. Okay, just tell me what you see.
Oh my God, come on.
Wow, what the fuck? Holy shit. I just saw something. Yeah. What the fuck?
Oh, I see that. I feel it.
I've been under the influence of mind-altering substances a lot, but I've never seen anything like that. Whoa.
I showed over 100 people, and I kept asking myself, how are all of us seeing the same thing?
Oh my God. It changing shapes right there.
The laser was revealing numbers and letters running in a pattern.
They're almost like this big here, and it looks like code.
It looked like programming code.
It's definitely saying something, and I just want to take a picture of it and translate it.
Wow.
You see that?
Okay, so yeah, it's not stuck.
No.
It's not because of the light.
No, it's on its own side. Light is just literally revealing it.
And each angle shows you different layers, different ways through it.
I could see through the wall. It's not like a hallucination. It has spatial awareness and permanence. I don't know. Whoa.
For centuries, mankind has attempted to explore these psychedelic, altered states, but we've never had a repeatable, testable phenomenon to observe until now.
So now I've never done DMT or any of that, but I have done this, and we showed you the footage a minute ago. You can watch that whole video if you want, but where we did this double slit experiment. And even before this, up in my uncle's house up in Vernal, Utah, near Skinwalker Ranch, when I was up there working with Dr. Jim Segala and Chris Leda, was when we originally got this exact idea. And we actually got a crystal that was on display in the living room in my uncle's house and set it up and created a double slit experiment and a fractal rainbow. And we were looking into it, and we spent the whole night talking about this phenomenon, how it reveals the hidden code of the matrix, or the underlying secret mystery of what reality and the fabric of reality actually is, and how it has to tie into consciousness and this language, or somehow this code. Like maybe we're in some kind of a simulation. It's hard to say, but we've been covering a ton of fascinating evidence and UFO whistleblower stuff. And at the end of the day, you all got to go check out this video from Jesse Michels, UFO whistleblower. I saw alien tech in an underground base. Go subscribe to his channel and give it a like. Tell him that Carl Crusher sent you. And then also go subscribe to my friend, professional remote viewer Daz Smith. Congratulate him, because over 4 years ago, he saw all of this Area 51 facilities, layers going down like spokes on a wheel, and saw this sphere that had a radiating energy coming off, some kind of a weird telepathic or conscious connection. And then here you've got UFO whistleblower Green Beret Randy Anderson yesterday coming out on the Jesse Michels show, confirming and saying the exact same thing, that he actually saw this object with his own eyes, the same thing that Daz Smith saw in the remote viewing program. And the fact that the remote viewing program, Danny Sheehan all came up, the Russian crash, the psychic spy program with Hal Puthoff and Edgar Mitchell going back to the Stanford Research Institute, all of this ties together and is a really fascinating piece of the puzzle. Maybe there's something true to this. Maybe the Roswell crash was legit and really did happen. And maybe the Betz sphere was a real sphere, and there's others more just like it. And some of them have been acquired and taken down to secret reverse engineering facilities and programs like Area 51 and likewise. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And as always, we appreciate you for subscribing, hitting the like button, and interacting in the live chat. And we'll see you guys in the next one.